Networking. A lot of people think it's icky, but it's often the thing that helps you get work. Can anybody talk about what they do networking-wise? One thing that you are comfortable doing in a networking sense.
The advice that I got once when I used to work in book publishing, and it was actually a woman in book publishing, and I was at this big party that my boss had gotten an invite to, and so I was the only young person there, and I was totally intimidated. And this woman came up to me and she's like, honey, this is what you do. She's like, you can leave after you introduce yourself and meet 3 people, and then you can leave. And so I was like, oh, that makes sense. So then that has always been my thing that I do now. I actually went to the NBC Universal drinks thing just recently. And again, I don't know anyone, and it is sort of intimidating in those things, and everyone has name tags, and everyone's kind of trying to figure out who everyone is. And I was like, 3 people. I introduced myself to 3 people, I can leave. And I did. And then, but those conversations continue, and then it's good. So I think I met 4 people. I was an overachiever. And then I left, and then I was like, I'm out of here.
I love it.
There's a farmer's market by my house, and it's right by CBS Radford, and I tend to run into showrunners that I've worked with, so who bring their kids. So I have a baby now, so now I trot my baby out and try to see if see who I can find there. I do that.
That's networking.
I don't know if this falls under networking, but we did a web series, and we sort of weren't afraid to ask our highest favor of the people we knew and actors. And so we had a role that was a woman in a panda suit who came to this mansion to date the sort of bachelor character. And we're like, who do we have access to who would be the most amazing person in that panda suit? And so we're like, Jennifer Aniston. So we just asked her, and she was like, okay. And so she showed up, she did it. And I feel like that helped us a lot, even though we're like, she would never. And then we just did.
So for you, it's just ask.
Yeah, don't be afraid to ask your highest favor of somebody.
Okay. Vera.
I think one thing I do is I make friends with people when I'm on staff, and then when you leave that job, I'm good at maintaining friendships, but there is a little bit of a friendship level jump. It's from you're in the room to let's go out for coffee after our job. And I also do it with the people I genuinely like. So it doesn't ever feel like networking. If it's if we didn't get along, I'm not gonna go for coffee with you. But if you're a staff writer, it doesn't matter what level you're at, let's go out for coffee and let's become friends.
One thing that could go under that category that people enjoy and do anyway is Twitter. People, the landscape nowadays, people have literally been like, hey, I'm having fun on Twitter, I'm gonna put jokes on Twitter. Cut to a year later, they've got a staff writing job somewhere. And, it's because they started just doing something that they thought was fun. And, Twitter is is like any social networking thing. You can meet people through there. People start following people and start tweeting at them or direct messaging them. And, through this route, people have literally gotten to know showrunners that they never would have met if the internet hadn't connected them.
Right. Well, you segued right into the next question, which is, what do you think about social media as a way to help your career?
I'm actually not a big social media person. I have never joined Facebook. I'm not anti it, but because everyone I know is on it. Everyone's like, you're so social. I don't understand, but I'm really a person who, I want face-to-face network. Conversation. To me, that's the real connection, I guess. And I'm in touch with most people that I want to be in touch with, I guess.
How are you in touch with them?
By email. I'll email them, or I still call people. There's a phone thing. Or I text or whatnot. But I want that one-on-one sort of feeling.
May, is there anything you use or do?
I'm kind of the same boat. But I did finally go on Facebook, and I thought I was the last person, but apparently I'm not. And I just use it for, to promote whatever show I'm working on, just to kind of, but I don't really go on it to have a funny line or
to make connections. Yeah, Jenny.
One word of caution. I just know that I have some friends who are writers, and they were very funny, but they were kind of being a little bit negative about the show that they were working on. And I mean, you're executives and people read that. So you have to be careful because I think it can backfire. So you have to just be a little cautious about like, we're stuck here tonight till like midnight again. You know what I mean? It just puts a negative aspect on the show. And I think you have to be a little bit careful about, you know, executives reading and whatnot because everyone's, you know, the perception. So
Last year, I was interviewing on Up All Night, and when I went into that interview, I hadn't really necessarily put it together that everybody's Googling everybody, but they had looked at my Twitter, and I had just seen Maya Rudolph at Largo do her Princess show, like she does a Prince cover band, and I had just gone to see that, and I'm a huge Maya Rudolph fan, and I happened to post something on Twitter, and that... Then when they met with me, they're like, oh, we saw that you were a big Maya fan and like you saw Princess. And I was like, started talking about that. So that's an instance where it luckily worked out. But I was going to give it like more of like a cautionary tale of like having seen showrunners Google. It's like, it's hard. Like, is your Twitter, like, do you want showrunners to be vetting everything, every joke you've written, you know, because that's a tricky thing. Because sometimes you just use Twitter just to be like, hate being in line. It says 10 items or less. And that's not funny. But, like, if you're going to be, like, thinking about this kind of stuff, it's like, oh, my God. Now when I tweet, I try to make sure it is funny. And that's a little less fun, you know?
Everybody says that it's really tough being a woman or a person of color or both in a comedy room. Can you talk about that and any strategies or examples and strategies that you've used to deal with that?
I guess, I think I've been lucky in a lot of the jobs. There were always a couple women. I mean, it wasn't like that one, like, oh, you're the token female. There was like at least 2 or 3 in every room that I've been in, which I think is great. And to the showrunner's credit, especially when there's like major female characters. I'm like, how are you doing this when there's only one woman? So I think that's a good thing. I think in terms of the diversity question, it's a tricky subject for me in the sense that when I first came out here for my first job for an ABC show, and I got the job as a staff writer, I think just based on my skills and whatnot. And then all of a sudden I heard, they're like, oh, but she's Asian. We're going to use her as a diversity writer. And it happened after. And I was like, what? I didn't even know what that meant. So because normally being an Asian, it works against you because you can't get into Harvard or Ivy League. So, like there's so many. So I was like, what does that mean it helps you? But then the problem with that is then everyone on staff thinks like, oh, she's the diversity hire, which drives me crazy. Like I find that very annoying and offensive kind of. And so I think that's been a little, so it's always been a little tricky in most of the jobs that I've had. And I feel like when I've been in a room now that I'm more senior, I guess I'm a producer level, and then we have people coming in, they're like, oh, is that the diversity hire? I think it's our place to say, no, they're just a hire. I mean, sometimes they are, but you have to kind of speak up about it. Right. Because it's a little bit of a stigma that's unfair, I feel like, and kind of works against us when it shouldn't. That's my experience.
Yeah, I agree. But you kind of use it, you know, to get in, and then you have to work pretty much twice as hard to, you know, prove that you weren't just hired because they needed to fill a slot. Right. And unfortunately, even when there is no diversity hire and that you're the only female or the only non-white male, they just assume, oh, you must be the diversity hire. So, well,
do you have a strategy for how you deal with that?
I mean, I've actually told my agent since then, I'm like, I don't want to go in for the diversity hire. I just don't. I mean, I know, I got to use it twice, so I think that's great. I believe in the program. I'm just saying, you know, I'm cautious. You need to know whether you're going in under that spot or you're just going in like everybody else. So maybe find out ahead of time.
Right. That's good.
I do feel like having worked in Canada and working here, I've been able to kind of have a bit of a comparison point. And what I was surprised by here is how much, I think, as a woman, you're assumed not funny until proven funny. And some people could say, oh, that's true for all comedy writers, but I feel like women really operate from a deficit. And I find it tricky when everyone's like, you're not funny to be funny, you know? It's like, that's really a hard audience.
I think after a while, you know, the first time, you know, somebody pitches that's not you, like a joke that, you know, slams women or slams Asians, and you laugh out loud and think it's hilarious just like everybody else, you know, they'll realize that it's fine, it's all normal, and then, you know, any sort of like acknowledgement that you're a woman or a minority sort of falls away and everyone forgets it, and we're all here to do the same job.
That's great. What do you know now that you wish you had known then when you were just starting out?
You can change your whole fate with that one sample that's really great. So you just have to really, that's what we're here to do. So if you really work on that one piece, it can change your, fate. Even if you had a bad run for a couple years and haven't gotten anything, had a good sample, you could still do it. So I don't know, invest in yourself, I guess.
That's good advice and encouraging. Erica, something you know now that you wish you'd known then?
I guess I wish I would have been more patient about the way it would all unfold. Like, I just remember starting out, I graduated with a screenwriting degree, and I just I was like, I gotta get going. I gotta have something happen. I gotta sell a show, whatever. And then I think, looking back, I'm like, oh, all those experiences helping out other people or just doing things for myself, it all led to, having a product of something that you're proud of and a career. So be easy on yourself.
That's great. Vera?
I think an important thing is, especially like after being on staff for a while, is maintaining your own voice and keep writing things. You may be on staff, but it's really important to keep your stuff and the things that you find funny going and separate in a separate file, because after you're pitching for like different characters, when you come back to your own blank page, I find that tricky. And it's like, I wish I had kind of kept that going, because that gets challenged a lot when you're in a room and stuff. So I would say maintain your own voice, whatever that takes.
Okay, good. Cherry, something you know now.
I would have told myself just to chill out more. I think especially in a comedy room, kind of like in, sports, you can have that thing of like, oh, I've got the hot hand and every single thing I say is going in. And then you can have literally the exact opposite, where you can have like days or, weeks, months, I don't know, where it feels like nothing is working. And that can get very discouraging. And I think you just have to remember that it's fine. It'll turn around. I don't have to like go home and be like, oh my God, I'm not funny at all. I should quit the business or something. Like it'll turn around. Get yourself a sports psychologist, I guess, and just have them tell you to like chill. It'll be fine.
That's great.